Last Thursday, something shifted in the air. I don't know how else to describe it. It wasn't a discovery. Not yet. But there was something about the silence in the house that evening. Not peaceful, not quiet, just empty. The kind of silence that doesn't wait for you to notice it. It just exists like it owns the place. She came home late. Too late for what she said she was doing. I didn't ask questions. Not at first. I just stood at the sink, pretending to rinse my coffee mug, while I watched her through the reflection in the window. Her movements were too deliberate. Her coat still zipped halfway like she just remembered to come home. Her hair too perfectly tucked like she'd been somewhere more important. She didn't say hello. She walked past me and left behind a scent that didn't belong to her perfume. Subtle. Foreign. Not hers. Not mine. She opened the fridge and stared into it like she forgot what food was. Then she shut it without taking anything, leaned on the counter, and asked if I fed the dog. We don't have a dog. She caught herself immediately. I meant the neighbor's cat. Julie's. You said you would while she's away. I had no idea what she was talking about. We never spoke about Julie. Never agreed to anything. I nodded anyway. That night, I lay beside her without sleeping, watching the way she breathed. Measured even like nothing was wrong. Like she was dreaming something warm. Something easy. And that's what twisted me inside the most. How at ease she seemed. As if there were nothing tangled in her ribs. The next morning, she left early. Said she had to drop something off downtown. No details. No name. No time estimate. Just the kind of errand that slips through a marriage without needing explanation. I told her I'd be working from home. She didn't respond. She just kissed the top of my head like I was some elderly uncle in a hospital bed. She drove off without music. I watched her from the upstairs window. Her phone had lit up just before she got in the car. I saw the flash of the screen. One name. A man's name. The kind of name you don't hear much anymore, old-fashioned, short, sharp. I didn't recognize it. And something happened then. Something I didn't plan. I grabbed my keys and followed her. It felt insane even as I was doing it. I stayed back more than a few car lengths. I kept thinking I'd turn around, that this was nothing, that I was creating shadows from nothing. But she didn't go downtown. She didn't even pretend to. She drove to the edge of town. A quiet street lined with tiny apartment buildings with peeling paint and blind windows. She pulled into a lot behind a dull gray building and parked. I watched from behind a row of trees. She didn't stay in the car long. He came out the back door, the man whose name had lit up her phone. He didn't look surprised to see her. He looked like he was expecting her. Like this had been arranged 100 times before. She smiled at him. The kind of smile I hadn't seen in 3 years. They didn't hug. They didn't touch. They just walked inside like this was something routine. Safe. Practiced. But I noticed how her shoulders dropped the moment she crossed that threshold. Like she was finally out of costume. I stayed in that car for over an hour. The windows fogged. The sun shifted. I didn't feel cold. I didn't feel rage. I felt like I'd been quietly lifted out of my own life and dropped into someone else's. Someone stupider. Someone who missed every sign. When she came out, she looked different. Her lipstick was gone. Her hair was tied differently. But her expression? Empty again. She didn't look happy. She didn't look guilty. She looked like someone who had been recharging and was now ready to wear the mask again. She didn't see me. I followed her home, parked a block away, and walked the rest. She was already inside when I stepped through the door, pretending to be annoyed that the coffee machine was still on. "I thought you were going to clean this," she said, not even looking at me. I stared at her. Right then, I stared at her like I was seeing her for the first time, and she didn't even feel it. I almost said something. I almost asked why she was at that apartment. I almost said the name I saw light up her phone. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled and told her I'd clean it up now, because something was burning in my throat. Not anger, not betrayal, something much more dangerous. I wanted to see how far she'd take this, and I was willing to let her dig the hole all the way down. She made spaghetti for dinner. Not because she wanted to, because it was easy, because it didn't require her to look at me for more than a few seconds at a time. She asked if I wanted Parmesan but didn't wait for my answer before walking off to the living room and sitting with her phone, screen down. The fake casualness of it all made my skin crawl. I sat there across the table, chewing through noodles that tasted like sawdust, watching the little twitch in her temple as she scrolled through whatever it was she pretended to care about. She didn't ask how my day was. She didn't say a word until I cleared my plate. Then she mumbled something about being tired and went upstairs. That was the first night I opened her laptop. She'd left it on the kitchen counter, lid shut, not locked. She always said she had nothing to hide, and I never questioned that until now. The screen lit up with an open Chrome tab email. Not her main one. A backup. Different last name. The kind people use when they want to be forgotten. I clicked through. Nothing jumped out at first. But then I saw the folder marked Airplane Travel Docs. Inside, receipts. Hotel bookings. Some here, some out of state. All short stays. All midweek. The latest one, 2 days ago. The one before that. The same week she said she was working overtime and asked if I could order myself dinner. The guest field only had one name each time. Not hers. His. She booked under his name. That was when it hit me. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. A one-time thing. A moment of weakness. This was logistics, a whole other schedule, a second life, and I was just the man watering the plants in the background. I closed the laptop and went outside. Not because I needed air, because I needed distance. I walked 4 blocks before I realized I'd left my phone behind. I didn't care. I sat on the curb outside an old gas station, watching the flickering neon in the window like it could hypnotize me into not caring. But something happened when I walked back. A car I didn't recognize was parked outside the house. Not in our driveway, across the street, engine still running. Lights off. I slowed my steps and watched. No one got out. I pretended to tie my shoe. Still nothing. Then I saw the glow of a cigarette inside. A silhouette. A man, maybe. Couldn't see the face. But the way he was sitting, hunched forward, staring toward the house, it wasn't casual. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. Then the engine revved. The car pulled away slow. Not rushed. Just done. Like it had completed its shift. I walked inside. She was in bed already, lights off. Pretending again. I could hear her fake breathing. I didn't say anything. I just lay beside her and stared up at the ceiling, wondering what kind of twisted reality I'd walked into. In the morning, she acted like everything was normal. Asked if I could pick up more detergent. Made some dumb joke about the neighbor's kid always leaving his scooter on our lawn. Then she kissed my cheek. That kiss felt surgical, like she was cutting something out of me. And I smiled back, because I needed her to believe she was still in control. I had a plan now. I didn't know how deep it would go yet, or how much worse it would get. But I knew I was going to follow the thread until it snapped. Because there's a difference between being blind and playing blind. And she had no idea which one I was anymore. 2 days passed. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't tell her I'd seen the receipts, the emails, or the way he looked at our house from across the street like he was inspecting something that was almost his. I did something else. I told her I was leaving for a work trip. She barely looked up. Oh, how long? 3 days. Minneapolis. A pause. Then she smiled, nodded like it didn't matter, and said, "Drive safe." No questions. No curiosity. Just a flicker of something behind her eyes. Like a switch had been flipped. I wasn't even out the door, and she'd already mentally erased me from the house. It was like watching someone take off a coat they never liked wearing. That same night, I drove 5 blocks down, parked the car, and circled back on foot. I had packed nothing. I had no suitcase. Just a black hoodie, gloves, and a small GoPro I borrowed from my brother a week earlier. Told him I wanted to record our dog while I was away. We still didn't have a dog. I came back around 11:30 p.m., walking through the alley behind our property. From the backyard, I could see into the kitchen through the glass. Lights on, candles, wine glasses. her silhouette moving across the room, laughing. And then he walked in. Same guy, short beard, sloppy posture, wearing confidence like a second skin. The way he moved through my kitchen like he'd done it before. He touched the countertop. He poured his own drink. And she let him. She leaned into him, laughed again, then said something I couldn't hear. He kissed her. It was fast. No hesitation. Mechanical. Like this wasn't romantic or passionate. It was practiced. I moved closer to the side window. They sat. She brought out food. Not leftovers, she cooked. I hadn't seen her cook a full meal in months. And there she was plating it like some kind of perfect host. Smiling like she hadn't smiled in years. Laughing like the version of her I thought was long dead. But then something shifted. He pulled out a small black box and slid it across the table. She went still. Not in surprise, in calculation. She opened it. Smiled. Closed it. I couldn't hear what she said next. But whatever it wasn't yes. Then she got up and walked upstairs. He waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. He followed. I didn't move from that window for another half hour. Not because I couldn't, but because my body refused. Every cell in me wanted to smash the glass. Rip the door off the hinges. Drag him down those stairs and ask her how long I'd been the extra in my own life. But I didn't. Because this wasn't the end yet. This was still the gathering. I left the GoPro in the vent above the kitchen before I slipped away. Disguised. Hidden. Perfect view of the room. Motion triggered. I walked away from the house in silence. And the sickest part? The part I'm still choking on? I didn't feel betrayed. Not then. I felt excited. Because now I was hunting the truth and she was still playing a game she didn't know she'd already lost. The next morning, I came back home with 2 coffees and a fake smile. She was in her robe, barefoot, standing by the sink like nothing had happened. No evidence of the dinner. No extra wine glass. No sign of him. Just her, humming something tuneless under her breath, wiping down a countertop that didn't need cleaning. Morning, she said, too chipper. You're back early. Yeah, I said, setting the coffees down. Flight got canceled. Some mess at the airport. Figured I'd work remote. She blinked, just for a second. A crack in the porcelain. But then she smiled. Lucky me. I looked around like I was casually scanning the room. Everything had been reset. Chairs tucked in. Dishes gone. Her perfume barely lingered in the air, swapped out, I noticed, for the one she knew I preferred. She was erasing her own tracks. Sloppily. But with effort. That told me something important. She wasn't just cheating. She cared about being caught. And she was working just hard enough to stay a few steps ahead of the man she thought she married. Problem was, that man was already gone. I spent the day pretending to type invoices and emails while she paced around on calls. Her tone was different now, every word more calculated, every excuse planted like a seed. She said she might be stepping out later to see her sister. She mentioned needing to run errands. She left the door open for options. That afternoon, I retrieved the GoPro while she was in the shower. Popped the SD card out. Slid it into my laptop. What I saw on that footage didn't shake me. It didn't even anger me. It confirmed something colder. She wasn't in love with this man. She was using him. The way she moved, how she touched his arm, how she smiled when he wasn't looking, it was like watching an actress rehearse a scene she'd already grown bored of. She played a role, but her eyes kept flicking to her reflection in the kitchen window. She wanted to be seen, worshipped, desired. And when he reached into his jacket and handed her a thin stack of cash, yes, actual cash, I finally understood the level of this betrayal. This wasn't just an affair. This was transactional. She was selling intimacy, renting affection. And I was the fool sitting upstairs, a ghost in my own house, listening to her laugh while she polished the lie. There was no ring in the box he gave her the night before. I paused the footage, zoomed in. Gift cards. Neatly stacked. Restaurants. Clothing stores. A hotel chain. And at the bottom, a card for a private spa. All prepaid. I watched her tuck them away in a drawer. Same drawer where we keep our old wedding photos. The same drawer I opened months ago to grab a charger, not knowing the ghosts had already moved in. When the water stopped upstairs, I shut the laptop and returned everything to where it was. She walked in minutes later in a towel, her hair dripping, I scanning the room like she could sense something had shifted but couldn't put her finger on it. You look tired, she said. I just smiled. Didn't sleep much. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. But this time, I wasn't wondering why. I was calculating when. Because she thought she was dancing on a tightrope high above a clueless husband. But she didn't know I had already set fire to the rope from both ends. And the fall was coming soon. She didn't see it coming. That's what made it beautiful. The next evening, I told her I had dinner plans with an old college friend passing through town. No details. No name. Just vague enough to be believable. Just specific enough to seem normal. She lit up not because she cared, but because she was already calculating how to use the window I just opened. She even offered to iron my shirt. She hadn't done that in years. I left at 7:10 p.m. I didn't go far. Just circled the block again, parked behind a shuttered bakery with tinted windows, and waited. I had installed a motion notification app linked to the GoPro. 2 phones, hers and mine. 1 house. 1 lie. At 8:04 p.m., the alert pinged. Movement. Kitchen. I opened the feed. There she was in a black top, something I'd never seen before. Too low, too polished. She moved quickly, checking the windows, dimming the lights just enough to feel hidden. Then she pulled out the same drawer. The one with the photos. The one now holding her little collection of gift cards. She pulled one out, the spa card, and tucked it into her purse. At 8:23 p.m., a knock at the door. She opened it fast, like she'd been pacing in anticipation. There he was again. Slouching, cocky, carrying a small duffel bag like he lived here. She barely looked outside before letting him in. He kissed her. She didn't kiss back. Not really. She touched his chest like she was trying to convince herself. They sat on the couch. She poured him a drink. He laughed at something she said. I watched it all from the screen in my lap, parked just 3 minutes from the destruction of my marriage. But I wasn't just watching anymore. This was Act 2 and I was about to enter stage left. At 8:41 p.m. I sent the first message. To her phone. From a new number. Does he know where you were last Thursday? On screen, I watched her freeze mid-sip. She looked at her phone. Her hand went completely still. The man on the couch didn't notice, too busy talking. She didn't reply. At 8:43, I sent another. Should I tell him what you're doing with his money? This time she stood. Walked to the kitchen. Pretended to get ice. She looked out the window, eyes scanning the street. She typed fast. Nervous. Her reply came through a few seconds later. Who is this? What do you want? I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I waited. Let her mind boil. Let her pretend she had control. 10 minutes later, he left. No explanation. She walked him out. No kiss. No plans. Just a stiff hug and a fake smile. The mask was crumbling. She closed the door slower this time, like the weight of it suddenly mattered. At 9:05 p.m., I walked in through the front door with an untouched burger bag in hand, acting like nothing had happened. She jumped. Said she thought I'd be out later. I was tired, I said. Didn't feel like staying out. She smiled tight, pale, and said, that's good. I missed you. She burned her tongue on the tea she poured 2 minutes later. And when she went upstairs to take a bath, I went back to my laptop and opened the footage again. This wasn't over. I had poked the hive. Now I was watching the queen squirm. Because something had shifted in her eyes when she read that message. Something small but loud. It wasn't fear of being caught. It was fear of what I already knew. And that's when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about secrets that went deeper than infidelity. And I was about to dig them out one message at a time. The next morning, she was up earlier than usual. Hair done. Makeup sharp. Wearing earrings I hadn't seen in over a year, ones I bought for her birthday and found dust covered at the bottom of a drawer last fall. She moved like someone staging a scene. Every gesture meant to scream normal, stable, happy wife. But it was too rehearsed. Too controlled. She slid me a cup of coffee across the counter. No comment. Just a thin smile. You sleep okay? She asked. Like a rock. I lied. She nodded. But her eyes didn't settle on mine for more than a second. She was waiting. Watching. I could feel the weight of that unknown number in her head. Spinning. She hadn't mentioned the messages. Not a word. Which told me she was already building her own version of the story, the one she'd feed me when the time was right. But I had other plans. At 10:13 a.m., while she stepped out to pick up a prescription, I went to the garage and opened the lockbox. Not the safe where we kept our insurance papers, the other one. The box she thought I didn't know about, wedged behind old paint cans and a box of broken Christmas lights. She'd changed the code since the last time I opened it. That almost made me laugh. She thought she was the only one capable of changing the rules mid-game. 3 tries. Then it clicked open. Inside, envelopes, receipts, a disposable phone, and a folder labeled Taxes 2022. I flipped it open. It was a lie. Inside were handwritten notes. Not hers. His. Different ink. Slanted handwriting. Sloppy but familiar. Notes about drop-offs. Amounts. Phrases like, keep it under 2K next time. Don't leave the front light on. Looks weird. He's catching on. You sure you got this? That last one stopped me cold. He was talking about me. They weren't just playing. They were planning. Coordinating. Managing me like I was a problem to be worked around. An obstacle. A calendar item. But it wasn't just that. Mixed in with the notes were receipts tied to my name, credit card charges I didn't make. I saw purchases for men's clothing, tech gear, even a Bluetooth speaker I'd never seen. All run through my card. All processed while I was out of town 6 weeks ago. She was funding him with my accounts. That explained the gift cards. She wasn't just cheating. She was laundering. I put everything back exactly where I found it. Closed the box. Shut the shelf. Walked out like nothing happened. She came home 20 minutes later with a paper bag and a fake cough. Told me the pharmacy had a long line. I nodded, sipping my coffee, and asked how much longer her sister was staying in town. She froze just for a fraction of a second. Then smiled. Oh, I think just until Sunday. Why? I shrugged. Just wondering if I should plan something for the weekend. She walked past me and tossed the pharmacy bag into the trash without opening it. That was the last confirmation I needed. She was covering something bigger than an affair. It wasn't just emotional betrayal. It was strategic, intentional, professional. She was using our life as a stage, and I had no idea how many acts were left. That night, I texted the number again. You're not the only one he's lying to. She didn't respond. She did check her phone 17 times in the next hour. I watched her in silence, her foot tapping against the floor like a broken metronome. Her fingers twitching toward her phone every time it buzzed with something meaningless, but not with me. Because I wasn't meaningless anymore. I was the threat she didn't see coming. And she was starting to sweat. 2 days passed. I didn't message her again. I wanted her to stew in it. I wanted the silence to rot through the edges of her performance, make her nervous, clumsy. And it worked. She started checking the locks, rereading messages, asking strange questions like, did we ever get that window fixed in the basement? We don't have a basement window. She was spiraling. Her control was slipping. But here's where it started to crack open for me, and this part still sits in my chest like wet concrete. Her phone rang while she was in the shower. I didn't answer it. I just watched the screen. Incoming call, Liam, cleaner. I don't know what that meant yet, but it was capitalized like a title, like a job. I opened her laptop again later that night after she fell asleep. Not the usual email, not the usual folder. I went deeper, system logs, cached images, folders that didn't appear in her doc. She thought clearing her browser history meant something. She didn't think I'd learn how to retrieve deleted files. And I found something. An invoice. Real official looking. Logo, watermark, terms of service. But it wasn't for a cleaner like housekeeping. It was from a company that provided consulting and information management solutions. I looked it up, no company by that name. No website. Just a shell that pinged through 2 countries before dying in a void. But the service listed? Digital erasure plus contingency package, and right underneath, my full name. She was paying someone to erase me digitally, legally, maybe financially. There was a note attached in PDF format, password protected. Took me 15 minutes to guess it. Her late mother's name. The note was short. Need to prep things soon. He's asking more questions. Priority, make it clean. No blowback. It wasn't signed. No timestamp. That was the moment I understood. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being removed. Systematically. Methodically. Not with violence, but with paperwork. Misdirection. Bureaucratic murder. A slow deletion. And suddenly, All the strange things from the last 6 months snapped into place. The missed payments, the bank alerts that vanished before I could check them, the declined card at the grocery store she swore was just a glitch. She was draining me. Not for him, for her. This wasn't about love. It never was. She was building a life that didn't include me, and she was almost done. But here's the thing she didn't know. I had already duplicated her files, already contacted an attorney, already opened my own account, already turned every message, every receipt, every shred of her plan into a well-organized folder labeled Exit Strategy. Do not touch, sitting on a flash drive taped to the bottom of the birdhouse in our backyard. She thought she was ahead, but she'd made one fatal mistake. She taught me how she lies, and now I could see every move before she made it. So when she came down the next morning and handed me coffee with that same mask on her face, lips too tight, smile too measured, I accepted it. I said thanks, and I told her I'd be working late tonight. She looked thrilled, told me to take my time. That afternoon, I booked a private session with a notary, had 3 documents signed, and slid a final copy into a sealed envelope. Inside that envelope was everything. Proof, evidence, leverage, insurance. And when I came home that night and found her already dressed, makeup flawless, hair up, phone screen dimmed as I walked in, I just smiled, because I knew where she was going. And more importantly, I knew who she didn't know was watching. She left the house at 6:42 p.m. She said she was going to grab drinks with Carla from yoga. There is no Carla. She's never taken a yoga class in her life. She didn't even flinch when she said it. Not a blink, not a stutter. Like she'd practiced it in her head a dozen times. The lie came out smooth, polished, worn from overuse. I helped her with her coat, kissed her cheek, said, "Have fun." She didn't look back when she walked out the door. I waited exactly 5 minutes. Then I followed. Not in my car this time. I'd parked that 2 streets down, deliberately out of sight. Tonight I took an Uber, anonymous, quiet. I had already bugged her car with a Bluetooth tracker the size of a fingernail behind the rear license plate. She had no idea. The route lit up on my phone in real time. She wasn't going to a bar. She was heading to an apartment complex on the north end of town. The same building where I first followed her weeks ago. The same place she thought was invisible. But this time was different, because I wasn't alone. While I followed her, someone else was watching from inside. I had hired a private investigator 3 days prior, a former local cop who owed a favor to the attorney I'd been quietly meeting. This guy wasn't some trench coat cliché. He looked like a bored, middle-aged Uber driver with a beat-up hat and a newspaper. He had eyes on the unit from a parked car across the street. At 7:08 p.m., she entered the building. At 7:10 p.m., he arrived. Different car. Same face. And then something happened I didn't expect. She didn't let him in right away. He stood outside the door for a full 2 minutes before she opened it. They argued. I couldn't hear it, but my investigator got photos, her pointing, him holding up his phone like he was showing her something. She looked furious. He looked tired. Then she let him in. By 7:23 p.m., lights off, curtains drawn, game on. What she didn't know was that I'd arranged for the unit below theirs to be temporarily rented. Through a shell name, cash. No paper trail. My investigator was already inside. And he had drilled a pinhole camera into the ceiling vent, right above the couch. By 7:35 p.m., the feed hit my phone. They were drinking wine. Talking. No affection. No playfulness. It felt cold. Tense. Transactional. He was upset. She was pacing. He handed her a small flash drive, silver, marked with a red dot. She snatched it, looked it over, and said something that made him flinch. Then she slapped him. It wasn't hard, but it was fast. And deliberate. She stood over him like he was nothing. Like he was the one causing problems. He sat there and took it. Not because he was afraid. Because he was used to it. That was when I saw it clearly. She wasn't his victim. He was hers. He was helping her, running errands, hiding money, moving files, setting up accounts. but she treated him like an intern who missed a deadline, like an assistant who was lucky to be included. Then she dropped the flash drive into her purse and walked into the other room. He followed. I turned off the feed. I'd seen enough. And now I knew everything I needed to know. She was the architect. He was the tool. I was the loose end. Except I wasn't anymore. By 8:40 p.m., I was back home. I had already printed 3 copies of the photos, the receipts, the text logs, and the footage stills. 1 set for my lawyer. 1 for the safe deposit box. 1 for her, sealed in a white envelope with her name handwritten across the front. I placed it in the drawer by her nightstand, right on top, where she couldn't miss it. Then I waited. And when she came home just after midnight, heels clicking, face wiped clean, wearing that same tired smile she always put on before slipping back into the role of wife, I didn't say a word. I kissed her forehead and said, "Glad you're home safe." She nodded. "You're sweet." But I saw it in her eyes. Something had changed. A flicker of doubt. A crack in the mask. She felt it. The balance had shifted. And she didn't know how yet. But she knew she wasn't the one pulling the strings anymore. She found the envelope at 6:32 a.m. I heard the drawer open while I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee. Calm. Methodical. She didn't call out my name. Didn't ask what it was. Didn't even pretend not to understand. For the first time in months, there was no act. Just silence. Then, her footsteps down the stairs. Faster than usual. Sharp. She came around the corner holding the envelope like it was radioactive. Her hand trembling just slightly at the edge. "What is this?" she asked. I looked at her. And not like I used to. I didn't see the woman I married. I saw a stranger in my clothes, standing in a kitchen I paid for, asking questions she already knew the answers to. "You already know. I want to hear you say it." I sat down at the table, sipping coffee like we were discussing weekend plans. "I know about him, about the apartment, about the flash drive, about the bank accounts, about the fake invoices, the fake cleaner, the charges in my name. I know everything, Madison." She didn't blink, didn't look surprised, but her voice dipped, low, controlled. "You went through my things. You deleted me," I said. "I was already gone." She walked over and sat down across from me. Calm now, composed. Her face was a mask again, but a different one. Not a housewife. Not the flirty manipulator. This one was pure executive. Cold strategy. "What do you want?" she asked. I laughed. Bitter. "That's your first question? No tears? No apology? Just, what do you want?" She tilted her head slightly. "Apologies are for people who regret something." That was it. That was the moment she showed me exactly what she was. Not just a liar. A builder of lies. A technician. A tactician. And this moment was her last pitch. "I want you gone," I said. Her eyes flicked just once to the side, calculating exit points, maybe. But I wasn't finished. "I already filed for separation," I continued. "My attorney has copies of everything in that envelope. There's a backup with a notary and another in a safe deposit box. If I disappear or anything happens to me, those files go public. Instantly." "You think I'd hurt you?" she said, almost amused. "I think you already tried." She didn't deny it, didn't flinch. Instead, she said something I didn't expect. "You've been smarter than I gave you credit for." And then she stood up, just like that. No screaming, no begging, no tantrums. But as she turned to walk away, she paused at the hallway. "You still don't get it, do you?" she said. I didn't answer. "You think you've won," she said quietly, without turning. "But this was never about you. You just happened to be standing in the wrong place when I started building." And then she went upstairs. She didn't pack. She didn't storm out. She just shut the bedroom door. It stayed shut for hours. When I checked later that night, she was gone. No suitcase. No coat. No shoes by the door. Just a ring sitting alone in the sink. And a note under it that read, "He was never a threat. You were." I stood there staring at it, not moving, not breathing, while everything I thought I understood folded in on itself. Because she wasn't scared of me ruining her life. She was scared of me understanding it. And now I did 3 weeks. That's how long it's been since she vanished. No word. No messages. Not even a whisper through mutual friends. And we have many. Not one of them has seen her. Not at the gym, not at work, not even at the overpriced organic market she used to parade through like a queen. It's like she dissolved into thin air. But I know better. I know she planned this. Vanishing was always a card in her hand. She just hadn't played it yet. The bank accounts she drained, refilled under different names. The trail she left, cold. She must have had help, and not just from the man in that apartment. Someone else, someone who coached her on the long game. And me? I'm still here. Not broken. Not ruined. Not even angry anymore. Just awake. After she left, I didn't go looking. That part of me wanted to, sure, to hunt, to confront, to finish something. But this wasn't a movie. There was no dramatic chase through airports. No rooftop confession. No sudden change of heart. Because people like her don't change. They upgrade. I kept my job. Moved into a smaller place. Quieter. Further out. I sold the house within 10 days. Quick deal. No mess. Everything that smelled like her was burned or boxed and dropped at a Goodwill 3 towns over. The flash drive? Locked in a fireproof box. Still there. Still untouched. Sometimes I think about deleting it. But part of me keeps it like a scar. Proof I wasn't crazy. Proof that beneath her smiles and staged affection, there was a system running against me. And erase the thing I haven't told anyone yet. The one part one saved for the very end.
The man from the apartment? The one she used, the one she slapped, the one who ran around playing errand boy? He contacted me. Last week. From an unmarked email address, no subject line. Just a message. I didn't know what she was doing until it was too late. I lost everything. She left me too. If you're still watching, she's not finished. That was all. I haven't responded. I don't know if I will. But I believe him. Because people like her don't stop. They evolve. They reinvent. They build new versions of themselves in other cities with other names until they've hollowed out everything and moved on again. She didn't destroy me. She sharpened me. I don't trust the way I used to. I don't hand out comfort like candy anymore. I watch. I listen. I measure silence more than I measure words. And if someone ever tries to rewrite me again, good luck. That playbook's already in my hands now.
So, if you're reading this because your gut's been twisting and something in your house feels off, trust it. Open the drawer. Check the phone records. Follow the patterns that don't make sense. Because sometimes the person you sleep next to isn't lying to you. They're lying around you, building a new world in the spaces you stopped looking. And one day, they'll vanish without explanation, without apology, and leave behind only what they think you'll never understand. Until you do.